Welcome, everyone, to CDO's magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Ludden, Vice President, Central Consultants, and I'm coming to you today from Toronto, Canada. Working with the CDO magazine, MIT's CDO IQ Symposium, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers. Today, it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Russ Rands, co-founder and COO of Prolego, and Kevin DeWalt, also co-founder and CEO of Prolego. Welcome, Russ and Kevin.
Thanks a lot, Robert. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure.
So it looks like, and I did some research, with you two guys, and it seems like you guys have known each other for quite a while. If I can ask, just for some background for audience, how did you end up working together?
So Kevin and I met about 4 years ago. We had been introduced by a mutual friend. Kevin had just shut down his last AI product company, and I had a small data science services company that was providing data scientists to startups. And he and I met and kind of had a meeting of the minds as to where the future was headed, specifically as it related to AI. And we realized that these big organizations would need to become adept at developing AI applications in-house and not be dependent on external product companies because the data was too valuable and the use cases were too niche. And so we set out 4 years ago to create a services organization that sold AI consulting services to the Fortune 1000. And we've been on that journey now for about 4 years.
And a lot can happen in 4 years. In fact, when I was doing some research, I came across that you've just released the world's first AI comic book called Adventures in AI. And from what I said, it's been well received. If I can ask, what made you think of publishing a comic book?
Okay. Well, I guess the idea of using comics to explain complex technical issues is not new, and we'll see how well this shows up on the screen. But General Electric pioneered this idea back in the 1950s when they were trying to convince how do we convince the United States to begin investing in electrical infrastructure? Well, people didn't understand electricity, right? They knew about the electric chair, but you needed to get small governments and educators who invest in building out and investing in this infrastructure. And so, you're not motivated to vote for raising your property taxes to invest in electrical grids if you don't understand what a washer is. But General Electric needed to sell more washers and irons, and so they educated the public. So it turns out that comics are really good for taking abstract technologies and simplifying and making them more concrete. And so that's what we try to do in Adventures of AI, which is take natural language processing and some of these other complex technologies and make them more relevant for a business audience that could understand them.
And certainly I can see that you have done it. In fact, it's not your first publication. I believe that you've also written a book called AI in 90 Days. And so I had a look at that, very interesting, but perhaps you can give us a quick update on what the AI in 90 Days book is all about as well.
Yes, we wrote this book, which is not showing up too well on our screen. We'll see if I can get it there for your audience to see it. But it was really designed for a business audience. And so what was true a couple of years ago, and it's still true today, is that most information out there about AI is either so technical that you have to spend months of time to really understand what it's about, or it's so theoretical and abstract and simple that it just doesn't make any sense. But there's very little information out there that takes a business leader, even somebody with a technical background, and helps them understand, what is this stuff? What can I do with it? And how do I get started? And that's the question we tried to answer with the book.
And actually, just as a follow-on to this, because as I was reading it, it certainly seems that both you and Russ have got you came up in the world of AI. And AI is sort of one of those umbrella terms, and it covers a lot of that. And I see that you had a very nice kind of way that you defined it in your book. I'm wondering if you might be able to, either yourself, Kevin, or Russ, share with us what AI means to you guys and how you define it.
Russ, should I take this one?
Yeah, please go for it.
So I guess when we look at what we think about is we're at a moment in time where we're beginning the next phase of really disruptive technologies. And if you've been around tech for as long as we have, you kind of get jaded by the latest, greatest thing, right? It's like this new hype, technology's coming out, it's going to change the world, but most of it really only makes evolutionary changes. But every couple of generations, something comes along that it really it even makes a bigger impact than its most optimistic prognosticators. We're talking about electricity, microprocessors, computers, the internet, and now AI. And AI for us just means intelligent computing. So the wave that's beginning to start to happen is we're going to start taking decisions that have been made by people and information processing done by people in our big brains. And we're going to start offloading those onto computers to make decisions for us. And that's really what AI is all about.
And by the way, I love the background there because it has all the numbers raining down on you. So very, very, appropriate for the session. So, and maybe this is something, again, it may be something, Kevin, you can answer, or Russ, you can answer. Why do you think now that at this time, there's such a big push towards AI?
I don't actually think there's a big push. I think there's an incredibly small push. There's lots of people talking about it, but companies are really not fully investing in this technology the way they will in the future. The way I think of it is we're like the internet in 1998, right? Where there was a lot of, remember what 1998 was like. And if you go back and look at websites from 1998, you're like, wow, how far we've come. I mean, there's just, big blobs of colors all over the place. No, I lost my train of thought.
No, you were saying, that's okay. You're talking about the fact that it was interesting. There's a lot of people, and maybe let me rephrase the question. There's a lot of people talking about AI.
Exactly. Right? I'm sorry. Yeah.
And so, and so because they're talking about it, it's obviously filling up the vacuum of what's the latest thing. But you were of the opinion that, well, a lot of people are talking about it, but not a lot of people are successfully doing it. There are some. But, and that's where we were kind of getting your opinion on, why did you think this was the case happening now?
I think what I look at is where are we going? And we're going to reach a point where AI is it's just part of our society and our infrastructure and technology. It's like to give you an example, when you start a new project with a client today, on day one, nobody sits around and goes, all right, guys, how are computers, electricity, or the internet going to play a part in the strategy? Like people look like you get your head cut off. But if you went back to 1997, 98, people were saying, hey, we got a new initiative. How is the internet a part of this? And it was a good question to ask. And that's where we are with AI. But we're going to reach a point where this is just ubiquitous and it's part of everything we do. And there are organizations that are beginning now that are going to make that transition and survive. And there are some that are going to just not make it and die. And so when we know AI, there will be a big push for AI when we reach the point now, like we have with electric vehicles with car manufacturers, where suddenly they realize this is an existential investment for survival. And for many, by that time, it will be too late. But we'll know it's a big push when everybody feels like they absolutely have to do it now to survive, and this is the clock ticking.